There is something within you that is yearning to be unleashed. A vision, a dream, an upgraded life. You know this and you feel this, and yet you're keeping yourself stuck exactly where you are due to fear. This is the pain of untapped potential, and this is exactly what Tommy Baker and I dive into in this episode. Tune in and learn why embodiment and alignment are key to creating states of flow, the 3 stages of life and how to move from surviving to thriving, and tangible steps to leap out of your comfort zone and live your true potential. Tommy Baker helps dreamers, visionaries, and entrepreneurs bring dreams to life and create a life they can't wait to wake up for. As the author of UnResolution, The 1% Rule, and The Leap of Your Life, Tommy believes living up to our potential is what we're here for and has been featured in Entrepreneur, Influencive, and Thought Catalog, and so much more. Combining thousands of hours of in the trenches experience with academic research, his podcast, books, course, and intensive mastermind experiences are designed to help people tap into their greatness and never look back. This is truly an incredible episode that is jam-packed with nuggets of information that will help you get unstuck and fulfill your vision. Today's unofficial sponsor is Tommy's latest book, The Leap of Your Life. He has no idea that I'm doing this, but I'm doing this because I'm obsessed with this book and I want to help him get it in the hands of more people. Head to www.leapofyourlife.com to grab your copy. And now, it's time to dive into the pain of untapped potential with Tommy Baker. Hey, thought leaders, I am back with another exciting guest and thought leader and author of an incredible book that I'm just starting to devour. And when I say devour, I mean devour. It is so good. It's grabbed my attention, only a chapter in, which means I'm ultra excited to dive into this conversation with the one and only Tommy Baker. Tommy, welcome to today's Thought Leader.
Ruby, thank you so much for those kind words, and I love what you're doing on the platform. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. So for our listeners, Tommy and I just recently connected in what feels like, I think we'd be in agreement, and what feels like it could be a long-lasting friendship.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Well, we're one and the same. You're no BS. I'm no BS. We get right. We don't mess around.
No, we don't. And we're both up to some pretty incredible things in the world. And we just connected a week ago, or less than a week ago, a few days ago, to just connect and see what we're up to. And I really wanted to just jive with your energy. And what drew me in right away is that it's all in your branding, resist average. That's everywhere. It's all over everything you do, but you really embody it. And I think that that's super rare. It's sad to say. It's super rare in the field of personal development and leadership that someone is super aligned with their brand. In fact, their brand is just a representation of them. And I strongly believe that our brand actually is us and who we be. And it's rare to find people who are actually that within themselves.
That's incredible. And you said, some of my favorite words there, which was embodiment, to embody. It's to become it, right? And then in the alignment piece. And alignments so often, I like to think of alignment, and you'll see this in the book, but alignment is like the ridges of the key. Mm-hmm. And the door represents our goals and our dreams and our aspirations and the targets that we have. And so, if one of those ridges, and then the ridges on the key represent thoughts, beliefs, people, relationships, environments, all of that stuff. And if one of those ridges is off, we put the key in the door and it's not working. And we can use force. We can start screaming. We can pull at the handle. Nothing's going to open that door. And that's a metaphor for being out of alignment. But the moment that we put that ridge in alignment, it's wow, all we had to do was, flick the wrist and the door opened. And so alignment is you're either in alignment or you're out of alignment, right? Deep down, we all know when we're out of alignment. So anyways, I love that compliment because integrity can be felt from miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And now for me, the people that I surround myself and the people that I learn from, I can just feel when they're in alignment. And I'm
Right.
drawn to that because it's just a reflection of who we are. And
Yeah.
so when we struggle with goals or we have to use a lot of force to get there, I'm usually asking like, where is the missing link of alignment and how can we focus on that makes everything else easier?
Yeah, agree fully. Like, where am I not in alignment? And
Yeah.
that's such a huge thing to take ownership of. Like, I think a lot of people get too caught up in the ego in thinking, well, I'm doing everything right and I've got everything down and I know all the things, but it's like, but there are still ways in which we can fall into deeper alignment within ourselves to then be in more alignment with our purpose and our mission and our vision and what it is that we know we're here to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we're in alignment, it feels we enter these almost like flow like states
Mm-hmm.
where it's we're deeply connected to what we're doing and we're attracting opportunities and the right people and the right puzzle pieces are coming together. But then when we're out of alignment, it's like it requires so much friction and there's so much energy and it requires so much work. And one of the things that I like to teach is that like we're meant to be in states of flow.
Mm-hmm.
We're meant to be in states of alignment. We're
Mm-hmm.
meant to be on purpose. It's just that along the way, we get life interruptions, we get pivots, we get spokes in the wheel of our life, and we get off course. And then our identity becomes those things. And I
Mm-hmm.
always like to remind people your circumstances are not who you are, they're
Right.
just circumstances. And the moment that we can detach from getting that into our identity, then and only then can we actually transform them.
Yes. Well said. We take on so much as human beings, so much and make it our own when it's not essentially ours to take on. The identities that we carry are very much often identities of our former selves,
Mm,
which are comprised of a set of beliefs that aren't actually essentially ours. We've just adopted them as ours at some point in time in our timeline because we just didn't know any better. And then we
yes.
become these adults and like you share in your story that that fateful day in New Year's Eve and crying and running through the football field and realizing that this isn't what you wanted. Like, everyone has that moment in their life, right? I think everyone, especially our listeners, like, we all have that moment. And that's the moment where you realize, wow, the identity I've been carrying isn't really the identity that I am. And these beliefs that I've been believing doesn't really align with who I am. You feel or experience the misalignment. You may not be able to name it, but you feel it. It's like
Yes.
that breakdown moment is the feeling of the misalignment. And when you gain awareness of that, I always say you can't unsee what you now see. So now
Love
you've got this awareness of like, shit, things aren't aligned. Okay, cool. Now what are you going to do about it? Like,
Yes.
where do you go from here?
And I love that because, we can get clarity from a breakdown. We can get
Mm-hmm.
clarity from a breakthrough. And a lot of people come to me and they say, Tommy, I don't have clarity. And it is my belief that clarity carries a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't have clarity or are looking for clarity. And there's this whole thing I call the myth of clarity because when and if they get clarity, that means that now we have a responsibility. Just like you're talking about me on that football field, I had crystal clear clarity that I was on the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
But the next day when I'm in a different emotional state, it is my responsibility to honor that clarity.
Right.
And that's when it gets really uncomfortable. So we
Right.
have to be like with clarity, we have to be very careful. Like, are we avoiding something within the clarity and using it? Because it sounds really nice, right? Ruby, I can't start my business because I need clarity.
Right.
Ruby and Tommy, I can't do this. I can't leave my environment because I need more clarity. And it's like, it sounds really nice. So yeah, you're right. Your friends will say, yeah, you do need clarity. You should go get more clarity. And
Mm-hmm.
then that becomes a distraction mechanism to doing,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, getting honest and then courageous action after getting honest.
Yeah. Listeners, what Tommy just did there was he just dropped a massive dose of fucking reality. So breathe that in.
So we're here for, right?
I always use the visual of, say it's like super foggy outside. and you can't see far out. You can't see like a mile ahead of you. You can't see anything. You can't even see like a quarter of a mile ahead of you. You can't see a few feet ahead of you, but you know there's something there. And as you step forward, you might be able to see a couple feet in front of you. Cool. Now take another step. Now you gain the sight of like a few more feet, and you keep stepping. And that's like the action steps that you take. And that's what creates the clarity. And I feel like on the other side of this is what me and you were talking about on our first call, which was the pain of untapped potential. Because I think there's a lot of people who have these breakdown moments, or who have these epiphanies, or these massive boosts of awareness, and then they sit with that, and then they don't do anything about it. And it's like there's such a heavy pain that comes from not doing anything, and yet so many people, I feel, are stuck in that space. So let's talk a bit more about that pain, the pain of how you put it, the pain of untapped potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. And great question and lead in. And for me, it's like there's usually two lives. There's the life that we're currently living, and there's the life that deep down we know is for us. The place where we know we're capable of something much greater. Maybe it's a curiosity, something that we've been wanting to pull on. Maybe it's, when I work with people, I always look back at proof of their past, of moments of greatness, moments where they overcame so many tough circumstances. And I use that as proof to build a foundation of the future instead of focusing on the past as baggage and what we haven't done. And so, but the pain of untapped potential is almost like your quote in terms of awareness, like you can't unsee what's been seen. Once we identify that, and once we get clarity on that, and once we, again, look into our past and we see the moments of, okay, I know I'm meant for something greater. I know that where I'm living in right now, this box that I've put myself in is not really my destiny. This is not what I'm made to do. This is not the experience that I'm supposed to be having. And we get that clarity, right? And then what happens next? And just like you said, if we don't move towards it, if we don't do something, then fears, people say, this whole thing of clarity and breakthroughs, like I always tell people, you already know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
We know what to do. It's just that we get the clarity. And in that moment, our emotional state is 100% clear. And I've done this with people, and they say, and I say, are you 100% clear? Are you 100% certain? They say, yes, 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 yes. Is there anything missing? Is there anything fear in that moment? And they say, no. But every second after that they don't move towards that we don't honor that clarity, what happens? Fear starts to come in,
mm-hmm.
and it loves time. And so the seconds pass, and the days pass, and the months pass, and the weeks pass. And then we wake up in a place of, oh man, we missed it. We had it and we missed it. Now we can get it back. So the pain of untapped potential is when we know in our heart of hearts that we're on the wrong path, that we're not sharing our gifts, that we're not stepping into our true power, right? And having that awareness and distracting ourselves away from it and not actually stepping towards it. And the pain of untapped potential leads to, in all my experiences, destructive habits physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And what does that mean? It means that because of that pain, maybe we sedate and numb it and soothe it with food or physical stuff that we put on top, or maybe mentally we consume information that really just isn't for us, but it's gossip and it's cheap entertainment and it feels good for the moment, and it's fantasy football and we're spending 15 hours a week on it, and it's like that's soothing the pain for a little bit, but ultimately it just makes things worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like if we don't take action towards what we want, we give our fear space to breathe and to breed, and we start, if we're not listening to our vision, that clarity bomb that we received, if we're not listening to that, then we're listening to our fear. And I think a lot of people do this unconsciously. Like a lot of people don't realize it. A lot of people are like, but I have this vision and I'm doing these things. But what they fail to recognize is that maybe you are, but you're not actually giving it 100%. It's like you're kind of just doing it for the sake of easing your mind, like, oh yeah, here I am trying to do something, trying to, quote unquote, trying.
I love that you said that, because I stop people all the time when people say and if you didn't bring it up, I was about to say exactly. Key word is trying, and it's
Yeah.
that convenient place. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's that
No.
convenient place where it's like we have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and half our body in and half our body out. And it's very conditional. Ruby and Tommy, if this happens, then I will believe 100%. If this happens, then I will be in 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But that mindset is exactly what's stopping you from creating those results on the other side. There's a great quote that says, for those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who don't, no proof is enough. And if we
That's a great
don't
quote.
believe, we're always going to look and find evidence for reasons why it's not happening. Oh, the
Totally.
market is too saturated. There's too many people in this space. I can't leave my job. I'm 4 years in. My, retirement account is growing. Whatever excuse comes up, it will come up, and fear will find a way to win.
Always. And I loved what you said about what you were saying with, if this happens, I'll do this. Because I think a lot of people get caught up in that. And that's, to me, that looks like if I were to do that, I'm negotiating with my vision. I'm negotiating with my vision by saying, I need this to happen in order for me to take this next step, or not knowing enough, waiting for the right teacher or mentor, waiting to get support or help in knowing something. Like, there's a thing called Google, people. You can use that to Google anything. You want to start a podcast? Is that your biggest fucking dream? Google how to start a podcast. It's right there. Like, there's no excuses unless, but all these people, and I was once one of these people, negotiate with their dreams, and then they live in this space of like pain, and then that pain becomes their comfort zone. And so anytime you move out of that comfort zone towards what you want, it feels that much more uncomfortable, and then you soon find yourself in this, like, what feels kind of like a trap. And that's when people say, oh, I feel like I'm stuck on this hamster wheel, or like I'm just stuck. It's like, yeah, cool. And who's keeping you stuck?
Totally. And what you said about adapting to pain, because we can adapt to the pain of untapped potential, and that becomes a home. That becomes a very comfortable home that we sit down in, and we have a nice couch in, and it's very convenient. And so we can consciously say, well, I don't want to be here. But subconsciously, our ego, we feel very secure in that place. And the moment that we're stripped of that identity, we're like, oh my God, this is really unsafe. I got to run back. And so I always say, our ability to adapt as humans obviously got you and I to have this conversation and be here right now in this civilization. It's also the same thing that's holding us back, or holding many people back from that next level, because we're just so great at adapting to basically shitty situations. We've all been in a job that we knew on day one, this is not for us. I'm going to get out of here within 60 days, and we wake up 2 years later and we're still here. What happened? What happened to that pain? The urgency was so high on day one, but as time went on, we're like, oh, no, it's not, they're not that bad. I mean, my boss is horrible, but they have some good
negotiations.
Yeah. But that's how we wind up in a spot of like, wow, I wake up and I'm looking at every area of my life, and it's like, this is not working. And so we have to be willing to get honest and make sure that we don't fall down that trap.
Yeah. And for those who are listening, who are probably like, wow, I'm in that trap. What you're describing is exactly where I'm at. What do you have to say to that?
Great. I see. That's great. See, again, your identity, your circumstances are not your identity. So like when people get really honest about where they are, like that's the first step to transformation. But it's very hard to get honest. Like a lot of people aren't willing to get truly honest. Where am I, and how do I feel about that? And not PG terms. How do you actually feel? I like to separate life into the 3 stages, which is a stage of survival, which is like you're running around like a chicken with no head. You're just trying to make it through the week, sometimes just trying to make it through a day. There's endless overwhelm. You've adapted to burnout. That's the status quo, survival. You win, I lose, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's the comfortable stage where it's like you're no longer in survival. You don't have that crazy urgency, but you're kind of in this place of like there's nothing on the horizon that's pulling you. There's no challenge. There's no big vision out there. You've had this little security, and you say things like, I'm fine. I'm okay. Things are okay. We're getting there. We're making it through. It's okay. Um, and then there's the state of thriving, which is the state that I like to operate in, that I like to bring people to, because in the state of thriving, you're integrated, you're aligned, you're seeking the challenge before it seeks you. You're chasing big dreams. The horizon excites you so much. You wake up actually excited for the day instead of dreading the day. And so we have these 3 stages. And so if you're in a stage, and the hardest place to move out from is comfort, because in scarcity, we got a lot of alarms telling us that we got to take action, or else we might not be able to feed ourselves that week, or whatever it is. But comfort is the land where we get stuck. So if we find ourselves there, the first step is, hey, we got to get really honest. That's number 1. And number 2 is, okay, let's take non-emotional inventory of our life, separate the emotions for a second, and really look at the hard data and look at what's happening. Instead of creating narratives through emotions and stories and all of this stuff, but can we actually just take a crystal clear look at what's happening? And that clarity to me is monumental for where we want to go in transitioning from survival to comfort to thriving. Because I will speak on stages and events and I'll talk about the thriving, and people who say, Tommy, I'm so far from thriving, and I'll always find times in their life when they were thriving. And if we've been there once, we've been there before. And I believe, and I know you believe this, that we're designed to be in a state of thriving. It's just we've lost our way and we've accepted either survival or comfort.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We've been designed to thrive. And the reason why survival gets so comfortable, why we get so comfortable with that, I believe is, or even like the stage 1 and stage 2 that you described, survival and comfort. The reason why we get really comfortable there is because of one of our basic human needs as human beings, which is, security.
Yes.
And anytime our sense of security is disrupted, it's scary as fuck. Like, we don't know what to do. We hit fight, flight, or freeze, and shit hits. We feel like shit's going to hit the fan. But in reality, if you were living your last day on earth, would you be comfortable having lived it in the pain of your untapped potential? You might be secure. You might think that your family's been fed, and you feel secure with that, with knowing what to expect. But is it actually worth it? Or would you have rather given your purpose, your mission, your vision, everything that you've had, that you got, like everything, thrown everything at it, knowing that failure is just part of the process, and knowing that failure is just not the end, and being able to go to rest knowing that you gave it your all? I mean, to me, the latter is what feels better. I would never want to go living my last day on earth feeling as if I didn't give it my all. And what's interesting, as I say this out loud, is that despite where I'm at in my career, in my business, with my mission, with my purpose, I think that untapped potential, that pain, comes up time and time and time again. Like, it doesn't just come up at the beginning when you're just starting to go after your purpose. And I feel like you wrote this in your book too, and I really resonated with it. But it comes up time and time again because we continue to reach new levels, and within those new levels, we continue to find new comfort. Like, what I'm capable of achieving today is not what I was capable of achieving 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. And yet I can still find comfort in this new heightened space. Yes. And it's about challenging that pain day in and day out. Like, I can get comfortable where I'm at. I can be comfortable with my podcast being where it's at, with my speaking, with my coaching, with my mission, with the people that I'm helping. I can get super comfortable. And yet my vision is so much bigger.
Yes. And I love that, because as we push the boundaries of our growth, our capacity, it's like I see it like as a bubble, our capacity and our threshold and our bandwidth expands, which means that also comes back to responsibility. If my capacity in 10 years is at this level, then I hope that I am using that capacity to fuel the mission in a bigger and bolder way. I love what you said about future pacing, because I actually put this in the book. One of my favorite ways to make bold decisions now, because ultimately our lives are going to be a culmination of the decisions and choices that we make on a daily basis, and they can lead to completely radically different lives. And so one of my favorite things to do is to future pace regret based on a decision today. So basically what we would do, if somebody has something they know they have to do, a decision they have to make, and it's scary, and they're like, they don't know what to do, and they're going back and forth, and their palms are sweating, I just have them close their eyes, and I take them through a simple exercise. And you go 5 or 10 years down the line, and you go to that place, and you go to the place of, okay, if nothing changes today, if nothing changes tomorrow, if nothing changes in the next 5 years, you wake up. So you've had the clarity now for that 5 years. You've worn it like baggage, emotional baggage, mental baggage, all types of baggage, physical baggage. You wake up in 5 years, go through a whole day with that. Go through a whole day with that regret. Go through the whole day of what could have been. Go through the whole day with knowing you had a shot 5 years ago to do it. And so we can future pace regret to reverse engineer a decision today. And in light of that regret, waking up 5-10 years down the road, not doing it or being on a completely different life trajectory, today's decision doesn't seem as daunting. In fact, today's decision actually is pretty easy to make. Mm-hmm. We step into our courage because that reality, that's a possibility. And I know for me, I'll do anything to avoid that, and I'll make that tough decision today.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't. I love that exercise, very NLP. I love that because I think a lot of people look at today as just one day. And then they wake up 5 years later and they wonder, how did I get here?
Yes.
And so it's really important for us to understand that how we show up today has a direct impact on where we want to go. And so if you're not showing up for your vision today, if you're not showing up for what you want today, then that is directly impacting the fulfillment of the vision. It's impeding its fulfillment. And the moment you start to realize that is the moment you start to understand the power of taking action. And again, like what we were saying at the very beginning with the clarity, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know the exact how. You don't have to have the whole plan laid out. I mean, I don't have any plans laid out for anything. I feel like I've just been like winging it and throwing spaghetti on a wall for the last 5 years building this career. And it's worked because every failure has brought me closer because it's given insight on what not to do. And every win has brought me closer because, again, it's given me insight on what to do. So no matter what I've done, as long as I've taken action, it's worked in my favor.
Yes. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, just like you said, it's clarity. If it works, it's clarity. And both lead to the same place, which is growth. Mm-hmm. And I always say, like, people will say, oh, Tommy, I have to figure it out. I got to figure out the details and then I'll commit. This is like so common. Like I'm literally having this conversation multiple times a day. Time I got to figure this out. I got to look at this. Men will look at spreadsheets. Women will typically do like more spiritual stuff. And it's all in the vein of figuring it out. And it sounds really good. But when we flip the script, we commit first, then what happens? Mm-hmm. Then the details will take care of themselves because we've made the commitment.
Right.
But we've got to make that commitment. And commitment is one of my favorite words because it's like, it's not a line in the sand. It's a line in the cement. Mm-hmm. This is my commitment. And commitment's 100% binary. You're 100% in. If you're 99.7% in, that 0.3, that represents a misalignment. And that could be the catalyst that brings it all to life. Mm-hmm. And so if you're out there and this is sounding really good to you and and we're hopefully we're inviting some deeper questions, but you still don't know exactly how to do it, commit first and the details will follow. And by the way, would we really want to know every step of our vision and how we got there? I mean, like truly, would we really want to know that? Mm-hmm. I know, we got to leave space for the magic. Mm-hmm. We got to leave space for the wonder. We got to leave space for the on our knees moments, not the negative ones, but the ones where we're like, oh my God, I never saw this coming. I never saw this as a possibility. This was not in my plan. Because guess what? Who you are today shouldn't know how to get to that mountaintop. I mean, that's the ride that we're on. That's the hero's journey of Campbell's story. Like that's why we're here. We don't want to know every detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I always tell people, like that faith and that trust and that resilience are required to leave enough space for the magic. I teach a lot about vision, and there's parts of my programs that are super like vivid and specific about the vision. And then there's parts of my programs where there's nothingness and openness in the vision. And people will DM me on Instagram. They'll be like, Tommy, you said this on a podcast about how you have to be so specific with your vision. And then you did another one on surrendering and letting go and nothingness. And I don't see how the two connect. And I say, that's the problem, because they are actually one and the same. We need the tightrope of the vision and the nothingness. We need discipline and we need surrender.
Mm-hmm.
That paradox, those paradoxical truths are exactly why we're here. And so if you're out there thinking, I don't have all the steps, that's great. You're not supposed to have all the steps, because the steps that are going to be revealed to you as you take courageous action, you could have never imagined them based on where you are today.
Exactly.
You're getting me riled up now.
I am. I can feel it. And like when you know all the steps, it's like it doesn't leave room for anything greater to come your way. You're actually limiting yourself by sticking to a, step-by-step how-to plan. It's kind of like a commute. You plan to get from one end of LA to the other, and you don't use Google Maps, and you go by like what you just know. Maybe you're just going to be on the 405 the whole time. Cool. And maybe there's going to be like five-car pileups on the way. Cool. Okay. Because this is LA. That's what happens. And if you use Google Map or Waze, there's all these different other shortcuts that the apps show you that go through little neighborhoods, and then you end up getting there like 20 minutes faster. And that's what this is all about. It's like you don't have to be married to the how. You don't have to know all the steps. You just have to know that next step that you're going to take today. What is one thing that you can do today that is going to bring you closer to your vision? That's it. Just that one step. And then as you take that step, things begin to get clear. So I love this. And I think that everyone listening needs to tap into the pain that you're harboring right now.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of pain coming from you not really stepping into all of your potential, like all of it? Is there a pain associated with that? And what would you rather feel? Like, what would you rather do? And so let's talk to those people, because now they've been listening to this whole conversation. They're like, you know what? Yep, I realize I have this pain. I am ready. What do I do? Because that they still get stuck in that. Okay, now what do I do? So what would you tell them?
Yeah, and a reminder that facing our pain is one of the most courageous things that we can do, and one of the most powerful to create leverage on exactly what we're talking about here. The avoidance of pain will always, always, always lead to suffering. Sometimes that's quiet suffering from the pain of untapped potential, and sometimes that leads outwardly, doing physical harm, mental harm, all of that stuff. Even just trolling. I mean, what are trolls? What are trolls? Trolls are people who have the pain of untapped potential, and they see someone like you doing a podcast, and they go on the YouTube and they say, hey, I don't like your tattoo. Hey, I don't, they'll find anything to bring somebody else down to soothe that pain for just a little bit. And it works. That's why playing the troll game and victimhood are so tempting, because it works for about 7 minutes. And then you realize you're in the same spot and they're not. And they're moving on. So I went on a little tangent there about trolling and stuff, but this is how we deal with it, right?
Right.
So if you've recognized where you are, if you've gotten honest with the pain, now it's time. Often the pain reveals what we don't want. So for me, I remember being on a train in New York City, and I was heading towards the financial district, and I was on a path that certainly wasn't for me. Nothing to do with purpose, no alignment. It was, I felt societal and family pressure and change majors to do it. I remember being on that train, and it was right when the crash was happening, and I looked around and I just felt the energy. And there was a lot of people on that train who weren't there for alignment, for purpose, who had just lost a lot of the reasons that they were on it for the money. And I had a moment where I said, this is not what I want. And on the football field, just like you said, from the book, this is not what I want anymore. It's what I thought I wanted. It's not what I want anymore. So once we've identified that, usually the pain will say, okay, this is what I don't want. So then we have to ask ourselves, what do I actually want? And I know it sounds so rudimentary and so simple, but if I go out here in Scottsdale and I just pick 10 people and I ask them, what do you actually want out of life? 9 out of 10 are not going to give me anything concrete. Most will say something that comes from a Hallmark, feel good thing. Oh, I just want to be happy, et cetera, et cetera. No, what do you actually want? If you had no limitations, if nothing was in your way, if there was no stories and narratives and beliefs of identity that was holding you back, what would you actually want? And so the pain allows us to get clear on what we don't want. And then we have to get clear about something that we do want. You don't need to know all the steps, but you got to start moving towards it. So if you hate the way your business is structured right now, or you're working for somebody else, go deep into the pain of what that feels like and why it matters to you. But then what would you want? Do you want, what would you want? What would light you up in that specific field? And that's when we begin to have clarity around what we don't want, what we do want. And then what's that first step? What is one thing that you can do today? Not 19 things, not 19 steps. What is the smallest possible thing that you can do today to start bringing that desire to life? So if you wanted to start a podcast, maybe your win would be spend 30 minutes on Google every day for the next 7 days and track it so you're actually doing it, investigating and researching the launch of a podcast. And then after that next week, guess what you're going to do? By that point, you have ordered your equipment. We can see where this is going, but start small. And that's why I love what you just said. Keep it as simple as humanly possible. Overcomplication is a distraction mechanism to let us off the hook from chasing our dreams.
Yeah, it certainly is. I know that one all too well.
Me too. I want to start a podcast. Oh my God, I got to investigate all the gear. I got to go on the forums. I got to buy, I got to return. I got to go to Best Buy. Next thing you know, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
Right. You're so overwhelmed.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice for everyone who is listening. Take that advice and implement it, meaning put it into action, right? There's no reason that you need to stay in this pain. And there's so much more that you're going to experience from stepping into that zone of discomfort for a little bit and taking action towards what it is that you want. Because, and I fully agree, if I were to go outside and ask 10 people what they wanted, those 10 people would probably first respond with, here's what I don't want. It's like when you ask people, what do you want in a partner? Oh, well, I know I don't want someone who's selfish and I don't want someone who cheats and it's like, cool. And what do you want? Because the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you start to replicate that in your life, because your mind doesn't have anything else to hold on to. You're just fixated on what you don't want. So you actually attract more of that versus like, what is it that you're actually running towards? Like, what is the thing that you're running towards? Because if you're just running away from something, then that means you're running away, but not running towards anything. So you'll just end up running in a circle, which is the hamster wheel. But if you have a vision that you're running towards, then you know what it is that you're running towards. It doesn't have to be clear. Again, it's just a vision. Maybe it's a feeling, and you run towards that, and you do that every single day. For me, it's like if I wake up and I find myself at any point in the day feeling unhappy with what I'm doing, I'll actually seek out ways to create deeper alignment. Like, where am I not aligned? What doesn't feel aligned in this? Because that's a sign of misalignment for me. And that's how I keep myself in check. And that's how I keep myself on track. And I share that because it doesn't have to be like this big, massive thing that you do. It could just be like this tiny little shift that you create because you realize you're not in alignment and you shift something. And that creates the alignment that you seek, and that helps you take the action that you want to take and move towards what you want. So that was my little rant.
Love it.
Tommy, we're nearing the end of this episode. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I just want to remind them that, courage is not fearlessness. I think we just have a really bad relationship with fear and doubt. I actually like to invite fear and doubt to my home, and just let him hang out. I'm not going to be best friends with them, but they're going to be part of my experience. See, here's the myth: Ruby and Tommy, when I ... then fear and doubt and uncertainty will disappear.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big myth. When I make this amount of income, when I get this job, when I make it to this place, then I'm going to be an oasis when there's no fear, doubt, and uncertainty, and my courage won't be required. And that's not true. And sometimes along the path, you're going to need more courage as you go on. I wrote in the book about Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Eat, Pray, Love. It sold 12 million copies. Her fear before that was making it. Am I going to make it as a writer? Is anybody listening? You saw 12 million copies and becomes a movie, et cetera, et cetera. And then the fear didn't go away. The fear is now, is my best creative work behind me for the rest of my life? And so if you're out there and you're experiencing doubt and uncertainty when you're going towards your dreams, I invite you to lean in a little bit more. Because the fact that those are there means that you're onto something, that you're thinking big and bold, and that it really matters to you. If those weren't there, it would mean, hey, you're on somebody else's path, or you're thinking so small and you're playing it so safe that you're really doing yourself a disservice. And that's when we harness the courage to keep moving on. And then we make friends with the fear. Oh, wow, I got invited to do this and fear's trying to hold me back. Okay, I'm going to step into it. Oh, wow, I had this opportunity. Oh, I'm going to put myself out there. A lot of my clients, we have this thing where it's like, how many times did you get nauseous this week? How many times did you feel just a little sick to your stomach with one of those bold, courageous moves, right? Because the more that we accumulate those, the more that we invite ourselves to step into courage and create the things that we really deeply desire.
Mic fucking drop. Boom. That was the perfect cap to end this episode. Wow, Tommy, this for our listeners, you might want to go back and re-listen to this because there's a lot.
Like 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's like a lot of nuggets in here that are really going to help you create that momentum that you desire and get out of the pain of your untapped potential. Tommy, thank you so much for being a guest on today's Thought Leader, for being who you are, for doing the work that you do in our world. I'm so grateful for our connection and really, truly look forward to, connecting on deeper levels and like co-creating in the future. Thank you.
That's what we're here for. And this wouldn't have happened without your courage and your tenacity and your perseverance and your resilience. So well done.
Thank you so much. All my favorite words.
I know.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you dig this episode between me and Tommy, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to download a few more episodes, hit subscribe, drop a rating and a review. If you have any questions for myself and Tommy, ask us online. My handle is at I am Ruby. Tommy, where can they stalk you?
Yeah, at Tommy_resist average. And we definitely want to hear from you. No questions off limits. Let's hear it. Tag us. I want to see you. I will respond back with an audio or video message to anybody in your audience because they're my people.
Amazing. Okay, so you heard that. I'm going to put his handles in the show notes, so make sure you reach out to us. And thank you so much for joining us. I will see you all here on Thursday for a brand new episode of Today's Thought Leader.